folks. This is not getting discussed on the mainstream media. Not only are they wrong legally, but the fact that they would do this is outrageous. This is an overreaction and really nonsense. How would you react if this was your son or your daughter? It's the offense of knowing the truth. It's the offense of having an alternate worldview. Saying God bless you to someone is not a violation of the law. Welcome to the broadcast, everyone. This is a very special broadcast because we are going to get into details on this unbelievable plight of Christian persecution in Iraq by the group ISIS, the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq, but now they really call themselves ICE because they believe in the setting up of a caliphate and really an Islamic state. But the brutality that's been aimed at Christians has been, frankly, unprecedented. We've discussed it at length. We're going to get into it at length, and Skip Ash is an expert. Skip and I were able to present a major paper at Oxford University in England just a few weeks back on ISIS, and we know, Skip, the dangers of this group.
The United Nations was created because of a previous Holocaust. Remember the genocide of the Jews, World War II. It came together so that this would never happen again. And right now, in our midst, in this world, in the Middle East, we're seeing another genocide unveiled right before our eyes. The UN has to engage in this. When we are trying to encourage the UN Secretary General to stand up, to lead the nations of the world, to recognize this for what it is, and to call for action and to rally nations behind this issue so that we oppose ISIS, oppose this Islamic State and what they're doing, and also render aid to those who are the victims of this, help them to flee where they're from their danger and go to places where they can be cared for. So we are trying to engage at the highest level of the United Nations.
Folks, this ISIS group, just so you know, as I said before, Skip and I did this lengthy presentation in Oxford. David, me, Skip, Jordan, working on a book right now dealing with this. It's coming out as an ebook right away. We're going to multimedia this. We've got our music group here working on a messaging song to get out on this. We've got to hit this on all cylinders, folks. Whether it's a book, whether it's music, whether it's the UN, whether it's the media. Because this is an unbelievable situation. ISIS is the most dangerous group we've witnessed in our lifetime. Now, when we were at Oxford, we had a well-known academic at Oxford, one of the best on the whole Middle East and Iran. He's very well-known, but he's left of center. He's a guy that believes you can really negotiate a lot of this out. But when it came to ISIS, and we said to Dr. Jananpour our view of what ISIS was and what they were dealing with and lethality of ISIS, he agreed. And I said, what would you do with them, Dr. Jananpour? His words. This is a guy left of center who wants to work things out. Crush them. Let's take Mike, who is calling from San Diego on line 1. Mike, welcome to the broadcast. You're on the air.
Yeah, my whole point is with this administration, he seems like he's picked the weakest team they can even imagine. Yeah. I mean, Susan Rice, John Brennan, you have a vice president like Joe Biden who he did a real good job with the status of force agreement. And, you know, you look at this and it terrifies you as a Christian, number one, and as an American citizen. Like, we got an open border that's funneling in all kinds of people, and you just wonder, like, how about a dirty bomb in our country? How about the fact that ISIS has the material for radioactive dirty bombs? David, we already know that we talked about it on the broadcast the other day, they have that material.
40 kilograms of uranium. 40 kilograms is getting close to 100 pounds of uranium. That is enough uranium, if it was packed into an explosive package, that could fill the air in a wide area with radioactive material. I mean, think about that. That 40 kilograms is easily transported outside of the borders of Iraq. And especially easily when you're dealing with a terrorist entity that has $2 billion in assets.
Yeah, at least. $2 billion was a month ago. I suspect it's approaching almost $3 billion now. And the control of that dam, that Mosul dam could become, let me tell you something, folks, that could become a bargaining chip for them worth billions because of the havoc it can create by just wiping out tens of thousands of people. Here's what I need everybody to do. Radio and television audience. I've held this up before. This is the symbol they're putting on your house. N, Nazarene, Christian. You have that on your house, penalty's death. That's not the way it works. So we got to fight back. The administration may not be doing much on that front. We certainly are. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. We need you to stand up for this, fight back, engage this issue. It really is that critical. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. ACLJ.org or 877-989-2255. We need you to sign this petition. So if you can make a donation to ACLJ, just do it at ACLJ.org. Share us and like us on Facebook. Back with more in a moment.
It's an atrocity that's unfolding half a world away. Thousands of Christians being murdered, slaughtered by radical Muslims. A deliberate and calculated attempt to wipe out the Christian minority in Iraq. The terrorists targeting Christians are known as the Al-Qaeda of Iraq, and their brutal tactics are designed to accomplish one goal: remove Christians from Iraq. Christians there face a very disturbing ultimatum: convert to Islam, pay an exorbitant fine, or die. Those who do not comply, according to the terrorist group, will, quote, face death by the sword. This persecution of Christians must not be permitted to continue. Stand with the ACLJ and demand that the United States and other nations engage. It's imperative there must be a global outcry and global action to stop the slaughter of Iraqi Christians. Call now, 1-877-989-2255, or please add your name online, aclj.org.
Yeah, welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. I thought it would be good to get a real perspective on what we're dealing with this group called ISIS. We've been discussing it, but there's been some good documentaries done on this. There's been some good news reporting done on it. We've put together a short video that really sets forth who this group is and what they're actually doing.
To Iraq, where the U.S. has sent 120 more military advisors to assess the humanitarian crisis that amounts to a modern-day exodus. Thousands of civilians, religious minorities fleeing an onslaught of violence by these ISIS militants.
In just one day, tens of thousands of Christians fled villages like Karakush and Bartilla, just about 25 miles away. Most have come here to Erbil with nothing more than the clothes on their back.
They have crossed a mountain on foot in the desert heat, forced to flee their homes, driven by their fear of ISIS. This woman says militants beheaded several men in her village and mounted their heads on the hoods of cars. ISIS is well armed, but sheer terror may be their most powerful weapon. Crucifixions, men tied together and marched to their deaths, shot in the head. Others buried alive, according to one Iraqi minister. Atrocities documented by the militants themselves and shared with the world on social media, sending a chilling message. We take no prisoners.
They take everything from the house, from the store, everything. And they take like machine, everything, because they are Christian. Just the name Christian. They hate Christian especially. We don't know why.
It was leave or die.
They say if anyone don't become like Muslim, we're gonna kill it. Kill it. Each one, from baby and the woman, one, old man.
We don't have anything here. They bombed the churches and already took our houses. We have nothing here. No money, no ID, no travel documents.
These desperate civilians came racing towards the helicopter, throwing their children on board the aircraft. The crew was just trying to pull up as many people as possible. A little baby, a red-headed baby, that ended up in my hands. It was chaotic. It was crazy, but we were able to then lift off with about 20 civilians.
What's happening now to the Christians, to the Yazidis, to the minorities, and like in the last couple of days, mostly to the Christians, is a genocide. What's happening is what happened 200 years ago with the Jews.
We brought nothing, not even clothes, just horrors, this man says as he drives off.
If you want to sign that petition, standing up for these Christians, stopping this genocide in Iraq, ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255, ACLJ.org or 877-989-2255. Hamas wants to kill the Saturday people, Chris Mitchell said. That's the Jews. ISIS wants to kill the Sunday people. That's the Christians. That's what we're dealing with. Sign on that petition at aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. Diane is calling from Las Vegas, Nevada. She's on line 2. Hi, Diane.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Jay, we just love what you're doing. I sign all of your petitions.
Thanks.
And I agree completely with the man before and with one of the other gentlemen who was talking about this being kind of an ancient war. It's not even civilizations we're talking about here. It's the good versus evil. And way back in the Old Testament, the king of Assyria chided Hezekiah and said he was going to conquer Jerusalem and kill them all and, the whole business. And God slew 180,000. So what I'm calling on people to do, if you sign this petition, please pray to the Lord that he fight against our enemies while we're doing these petitions and that he sends his armies of angels to stop these people, to confound them, just like he blew those rockets into the sea that were headed for Israel.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling in, Diane, and you put it in a really great perspective, and I'm going to go to David French and then Skip, but let me go to David. Diane brought up a really important point, and that is when you're looking at the nature of this conflict that we're engaged in, it literally is old as the Scripture. This
absolutely.
We are witnessing and watching the battles talked about in Scripture in existence today.
And if you doubt that...
Same groups.
Yeah, if you doubt that, just ask the enemy.
Yeah.
They are intentionally, self-consciously living out what they believe the Quran is telling them to do. They are trying to continue a jihad started by Muhammad. I mean, that's what they're trying. Yeah. It's no secret.
And, but Skip, it really even predates Islam. I mean, this conflict in this region of the world does literally go back to Scripture. And this has been going on almost since the beginning of time.
It really has. All we have to do is think back to Abraham and the fact that Abraham did not believe God and sired Ishmael, and that started the family feud, so to speak. And we've been living with the result of Abraham's sin ever since. And that fight is going on today between the Arabs and the Jews, and it's spreading as Islam has come into being, but it's exactly that fight, and it goes back that long.
Sydney is calling from California. Sydney, welcome to the broadcast. You're on.
Thank you. It seems like President Obama has not yet made up his mind which God he wants to serve, the God of sacrifice, mercy, and faith, or the God of self-works and determination within the works of his own hands.
The policies, let's talk about the policies he's implementing and the worldview from which those policies originate. And I will say clearly that those policies do not fall within what we would traditionally call the Judeo-Christian tradition. It does not mean that the president is not a Christian. It just means that the positions he's advocating don't fall within that normative worldview. David, you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again and again, he backs the Muslim Brotherhood.
It picked the wrong side
absolutely.
In the Middle East in every single debate.
Absolutely. I mean, think about this. He backed the Muslim Brotherhood takeover in Egypt.
Right.
And then in the latest war in Gaza, when his Secretary of State goes to try to negotiate a ceasefire, he becomes an advocate for Hamas's position, for Hamas's demands. Unbelievable.
Well, what did he call those demands? Will has that bite, and Nick. It's that when they were talking about Israel's actions, it was disgraceful, it was despicable. But then when it came to Hamas, what they called it, ill-conceived military strategy or something. I mean, we have that bite. I mean, this tells you what the problem is on the presidential level.
I also think it is important to remember that Hamas acts extraordinarily irresponsibly when it is deliberately siting rocket launchers in population centers.
Deliberately, irresponsibly, Skip, when what they were doing is a war crime.
It is a war crime. You have to recognize it for what it is. When you use civilian areas for military purposes, you violate the fundamentals of distinction between civilians and military people. The president just doesn't seem to be able to get it, and his foreign affairs team and intelligence teams seem to be the Keystone Cops. They just can't get their act together. No matter what they decide, they are on the wrong side of each issue, and then they're surprised when that doesn't work out the way they think. It is absolutely amazing to me that having been in the White House this long, he hasn't realized the team he has chosen is not up to snuff, and get people in there who really know what they're doing. Because right now we are continuing down a very amateurish, naive path that is going to lead to destruction of our allies, and they don't trust us now, and it doesn't act in our own best interest.
Yeah, I'm not so sure, by the way, how naive it is. I think this is the plan. I mean, I think this is the president's policy being implemented. It just isn't working out the way they want. But I don't know if it's so now. I think this is this is the policy they wanted to put forward, David.
Oh, absolutely the policy they wanted to put forward.
They're not doing this by accident.
No. I mean, this is part of a coherent philosophy that they have had about the Middle East from the beginning that depended on a couple of things. Number one, it depended on their belief that there was going to be a certain personal magnetism that that President Obama had, that would win over the enemy. And the other one was this belief that the jihadist enemy had certain kinds of legitimate grievances that if only we appeased, they would go away.
It didn't work out so well. Let's go to Ricka calling from line 4 from Bradenton, Florida. Hi, Ricka. Welcome to the broadcast. You're on the air.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to say that I signed the petition.
Thank you.
I definitely will donate after we finish this conversation.
We appreciate that.
I have a few things to say. One, I heard today in the news early this morning that the Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, said after U.S. Noticed what's going on the mountain with all these Christians, he said it's relatively fair. My question is, what does it mean by relatively fair? When people are being beheaded, people are being killed, people are being chased, people are being... I don't really...
What he's saying, Rick, is that it wasn't as bad as he thought it was going to be. From the intelligence reports that he's getting. What he's failing to understand is that while the mountain is, they focused on the mountain as if that's the only area, and that's just not the case. So yes, a lot of people, because of the airstrikes, have been able to get off the mountain. But where are they going? The places they're going to, they're getting killed. You know what also Chuck Hagel said yesterday? The world's a mess. I mean, this is your Secretary of Defense. This is the strategy. What was it? Hillary Clinton chastising the Obama administration, saying your foreign policy should be don't do something stupid. And the Secretary of Defense is saying the world's a mess. This isn't very encouraging to the American people. But I'll tell you what is encouraging is 136,000 have already contacted us standing up against this genocide in Iraq. And that lets our government affairs teams really do their job. And I need you to help us do that at aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255, aclj.org or 877-989-2255. We are at 136,899. Let's get over 137,000 when we come back in the next few minutes. Let's try to get it up to that number. And also call us at 877-989-2255. Signing on to this petition, stopping this genocide. Share this information. Like us on social media, especially Facebook. Back with your calls in a moment.
It's an atrocity that's unfolding half a world away. Thousands of Christians being murdered, slaughtered by radical Muslims, a deliberate and calculated attempt to wipe out the Christian minority in Iraq. The terrorists targeting Christians are known as the Al-Qaeda of Iraq, and their brutal tactics are designed to accomplish one goal: remove Christians from Iraq. Christians there face a very disturbing ultimatum: convert to Islam, pay an exorbitant fine, or die. Those who do not comply, according to the terrorist group, will, quote, face death by the sword. This persecution of Christians must not be permitted to continue. Stand with the ACLJ and demand that the United States and other nations engage. It's imperative there must be a global outcry and global action to stop the slaughter of Iraqi Christians. Call now, 1-877-989-2255, or please add your name online, aclj.org.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the broadcast. For our television audience, we're glad you're here. Radio audience, as always. You know, we got a couple of calls yesterday which were people saying, oh, is it really this bad? I don't think we've seen evil and lethality like this in our lifetime. Those that are my age, I'm almost 60. Lethality and evil like this in my lifetime. And understand that they're at the beginning stages of this. This ISIS group has been around for a couple of years, but they're fermenting, if you will. It's almost like fermenting grape juice here. As they age, they're going to get more dangerous. And I think, Skip, when we looked at ISIS when we were in Oxford, we realized that if it's not curtailed immediately, this is the group that it's going to way outshadow Al-Qaeda. I mean, this has got lethality potential and just sheer numbers of people joining in ways we've never seen.
In fact, it's already happening.
Yep.
We have reports that people are coming from other jihadist groups and are rallying to the Islamic State and to this new group. We have to keep in mind, remember how bad Al-Qaeda was? They went in and killed civilians on 9/11 willy-nilly. They could care less. They have condemned the brutality of the Islamic State. As brutal as they were, this group, the Islamic State, is so brutal that they've had to withdraw and to draw away and condemn them for their brutality. But that's also inviting and gathering a number of these young jihadists who are really fanatical and really want to come after everybody who does not believe the way they do.
Disraeli said it. When you're dealing with these kind of regimes, you can't deal by arbitration. It's got to be by force, and I think that's what we're seeing. David, go ahead.
And here's what's unbelievably tragic. We fought these people before. They had a previous name, and that name was Al-Qaeda in Iraq.
Right.
We fought them in the surge. We beat them down to almost nothingness. I mean,
almost nothing.
Almost nothing. They had to flee Iraq, went into Syria, gained all of that strength in Syria, and then came back across the border. And here's another sad thing. The Obama administration was warned about this and warned about it and warned about it and did nothing. And now ISIS holds the keys to a weapon of mass destruction, this dam in Mosul. They could sweep away 500,000 people if it chose.
And they could use it as a negotiating chip for billions of dollars. If you don't do this, if you don't give us this money, it's like a hostage. We're going to do this with this facility, the dam. And it's unbelievable. William's calling from Macon, Georgia, on line 1. Hi, William.
Hey, Jay, how you doing?
Good.
There's two issues that really appalls me about this whole situation.
Okay.
The first situation is the fact that it's already bad enough that you got ISIS slaughtering all these innocent Christians.
Right.
But in the same token, they call what they do a cleansing.
Yep.
I mean, what a statement is that?
Well, their idea is this is a ritual cleansing because they're getting rid of the infidels. So this is part of their process. But when you look at both the evil that they're engaged in, the lethality of what they have access to, and that Mosul Dam, folks, let me tell you something. That Mosul Dam could become a weapon, as David just said, a weapon of mass destruction. Or the ability for them to get even more money and assets. And the money and assets let them grow. So this is what you're dealing with. And this is why you've got to speak out against this evil. This isn't evil. It is right before us. And we're not even, forget the military action side of this. This should be a world outrage. Where's Ban Ki-moon on this one? You know, they rushed to put together a UN commission to investigate Israel in the latest conflict with Hamas. That they do right away. What have they said on this? Oh, we got to use stage 3 humanitarian crisis? No, you've got genocide right before your eyes. Greg's calling from Appleton, Wisconsin. He's on line 6. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Jay. Thank you guys for everything. God bless you.
Thanks.
I don't know if there's a legal basis for this, but I've been hearing a lot of, if you broke it, you fix it. I don't know how many years it takes for nation building, but shouldn't the president feel somewhat responsible, if not even possibly culpable for this genocide?
Well, I mean, the failure to get a status of force agreement, which, of course, he blames on President Bush, which that's been debunked, has created part of the problems here. But I'm going to let David and Skip address that. David first.
Well, here's the bottom line. We didn't break Iraq. It was a broken country when we got there. We fought long and hard to create something that was more stable, more humane than when we arrived, and that was not a threat to the U.S. We accomplished all of that.
Right.
We did. And in 2011, even Barack Obama was bragging about what Iraq had become. And then we took our hands away from it. We just left it alone. We didn't do that in Korea. We didn't do that in Germany. We didn't do that in Japan. We just left it alone. Yeah. And then this is what happens.
So, Skip, your sense, when you hear these calls coming in, what is your read on this?
I agree exactly with what David said. We have, in the past, we've succeeded where we've had some stick-to-itiveness, where we've left some forces. They don't have to be a lot of forces, but we leave forces to keep stability, to allow a society to develop some of these institutions over time. We cannot expect these institutions to develop overnight and be stable, especially when you have so many cross currents and loyalties in a society like Iraq. Without having U.S. forces there, it was a recipe for disaster, and now we're seeing the disaster that occurred and was forecast and was foreseeable by any person who looked at it closely.
And Skip, by the way, served in Korea, and David served in Iraq. Jay's calling from Virginia Beach, Virginia, home of Regent University, where I was there Tuesday on line 3. Jay, welcome to the broadcast. You're on the air.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Good.
That's good. Hey, I was hearing this morning that the administration is going to pull back on airstrikes.
Yes.
Because they said that they actually most people then fled the mountains.
Well, the airstrikes have enabled most of the people to get off the mountain. The problem is all ISIS is doing, ISIS morphs to the situation. So they saw they were going to have trouble on the mountain, and they just move elsewhere. And David, that's what's happened. So you need to knock out, and air supply would do this. I mean, it would certainly help Air Force. You got to knock out ISIS. I mean, just the fact that the mountain's not now as bad as we thought it was because either people have been killed, died, or got out, well, that's good. But the fact is ISIS is growing.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're just moving to different areas.
Jihad flows like water. It always goes down the path of least resistance. So if you do some airstrikes at the mountain, they'll move on from the mountain. They were attacking Kurdistan on a 650-mile front. We responded with 19 airstrikes. Do the math on that. There's an enormous amount of open ground and open territory that they are heading towards now. And we're not talking about just tens of thousands. As awful as that was on the mountain, we're beginning to talk about millions in Kurdistan.
Yeah, but Robert Scales, retired Army Major General, said this, talking about flying away with the Islamic State still dominant. In other words, leaving while the Islamic State is still dominant on the battlefield. He says the terrorists will proclaim to the world that the United States is a cowardly country that has been beaten again. And folks, we just can't let it happen, and we can't let people be killed like this. So this is where you come in. Pray, number one. Pray for Saeed Abedini. I was working late last night dealing with that situation. Pray also that we get a breakthrough on that case because he's in a prison with ISIS agents in there that the Iranians have arrested. And also speak out. ACLJ.org. You can speak out for people that can't. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. ACLJ.org or 877-989-2255 to sign on that petition. Also, our teams have been activated around the globe. David and me, Skip, and Jordan are working on a book right now that's going to be an ebook coming out on this. Our band guys are putting a song together on this so we can reach millions. We've got to stand up and work on all of this together. We need your help. ACLJ.org for that or 1-877-989-2255, and we'll talk to you next week.
It's an atrocity that's unfolding half a world away. Thousands of Christians being murdered, slaughtered by radical Muslims. A deliberate and calculated attempt to wipe out the Christian minority in Iraq. The terrorists targeting Christians are known as the Al-Qaeda of Iraq, and their brutal tactics are designed to accomplish one goal: remove Christians from Iraq. Christians there face a very disturbing ultimatum: convert to Islam, pay an exorbitant fine, or die. Those who do not comply, according to the terrorist group, will, quote, face death by the sword. This persecution of Christians must not be permitted to continue. Stand with the ACLJ and demand that the United States and other nations engage. It's imperative there must be a global outcry and global action to stop the slaughter of Iraqi Christians. Call now, 1-877-989-2255, or please add your name online, aclj.org.